Okay, the American Pessimist Society Annual Meeting 2021. We had anticipated having this last year, but as you know, like so many other organizations, this didn't happen. The meeting dates are...
argue against making this mandatory for equity and other concerns. And we have those same concerns too. We see biometric security that has been very successful where people take that voluntary action to give their
I'm going to wait until whoever's speaking.
And you could have the same program where people can have access to quicker access to travel if they have some sort of passport.
Whoever's speaking, would you mute please right now? Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Okay, I'll start again. The APS meeting, American Pessimist Society meeting, will be in 2021, July 9th through the 12th, if you choose the Monday option. We'll be meeting in the Bear Mountain Range, Bear Lake up in that area, and our central point will be Logan, Utah, which is a great town. I've camped many times up in that range and it's absolutely beautiful. I think you'll enjoy it. If you decide to go, you will need to be a member. Membership is very cheap. So that's a great opportunity since we're all thirsting for some meetings. The other meeting I wanted to talk about is the Areogram Society. Just a little history here. 2 years ago, we wished to meet in the Elko area, but there was a fire.
Yeah. Germany, I guess.
Where?
Germany?
Or
is it?
Hey guys, make sure you're muted, please.
Oh.
Thank you, Michael. And okay, the Areogram Society meeting is 2021, June 24 through 27. And we'll be meeting in the Elko, Nevada area. The highlight, of course, will be the Ruby Mountains and the surrounding area. Again, that's June 24th through 27th. You can find this information on the Areogram's website, areogram.org, and likewise through the American Pessimist Society. That information is at pessimist.org. Thanks, Michael.
Sure, thanks, Hugh. Yeah, those sound like great meetings that people would definitely want to take advantage of, in addition to the NARGS meeting if it occurs in August.
Right.
So yeah, we finally have some interesting in-person meetings on the horizon, so that's wonderful. I think we're going to jump in now. We're very lucky to have Johan Nilson from Göteborg Botanical Garden today present. There was a nice short write-up in the newsletter about Gothenburg. It holds one of the largest collections of bulbs in the world with more than 5,000 accessions, so that's pretty impressive. And they're largely grown under glass because of the climate there. And the collection of Alpines is just as exciting, with many species rarely seen elsewhere. And that is true. I've had the pleasure of visiting Gothenburg 3 times, and every time I'm completely blown away. I can say this honestly, it is my favorite botanic garden in the world. I always kind of use it as a metric of where DBG should aim. And I've also drugged my parents through there once, and they declared that it was their favorite botanic garden, 2 of all the botanic gardens that I've drug them through over the years. Johan's the horticulturist / specialist in the Alpine Department at Gothenburg, where he's been working since 2009. Besides taking care of the bulb collections, Johan is looking after a large part of the Alpine collection, including the Himalayan section of the rock garden. He has a degree in horticulture from Gothenburg University and further experiences working for several years in a perennial nursery. Johan has a broad interest in plants and travels widely to see plants in the wild. He's also lectured frequently in the UK and here in the US as well. In 2016, Johan was one of the speakers at the conference in Steamboat Springs, and he was here for about 2 weeks, and we got to spend kind of the better part of a week together, and he's one of the nicest, easiest going guys I've ever met. So I'd gladly do another trip with Johan any day. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Johan, and you guys are in for ginormous treats. So thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Hello, everyone. It's an honor to have been invited to talk to your group here today, and yes, I will be talking about bulbs and alpines at Göteborg Botanical Garden, and I will take you there very soon. But first, we're going to start at your side of the world and the Rockies. Let's see what's happening here. Trying to change slide here. Do you see anything happening? No.
I don't. There might be a slight delay.
Here we go. And yes, it's the first slide here is a view looking over the Medicine Mountain in Wyoming. And just as Mike said, the 2016 I was invited to give a lecture, to give a talk during the NARGS conference Steamboat, and that was also a first time for me to be introduced to your amazing part of this amazing part of the Rockies. And growing plants and to be a gardener, traveling to meet plants in the wild, to see plants in a natural environment connects you in a special way to the plants, and also you get a deeper understanding on their needs when it comes to growing plants, but also to travel to various conferences and listen to lectures and meet special groups, especially the North American Rock Garden Society, Alpine Garden Society, Scottish Rock Garden Club, etc. They're, all these groups are so important. All the best growers of all different genera of plants, are within these groups, the enthusiasts within these groups. So from a botanical garden point of view, it's so important to meet people, enthusiasts, but also to see plants in the wild.
Are you sharing your screen?
I'm seeing it. Are you seeing it, Hugh?
No, I'm not.
You're not seeing my screen, Mike?
I'm
No.
seeing it. Hugh's not. I see it fine. It's advancing. Is anyone else? Mike Bone's seeing it.
I'm seeing it.
I'm seeing it.
Okay.
Okay. Must
I'm
be
seeing
user
it too.
error.
I see it.
Good enough.
That's good. Sorry, Johan.
The option of muting the video.
So I continue.
Sure. Yes.
So
please continue.
one of these plants, Clematis tenuiloba or Colombiana variety tenuiloba, seen growing in and out of the cracks here up at Medicine Mountain, personally was very special for me. And also to see the Calcea uniflora growing on these vertical cliffs in a way you would expect to see Dionysias growing in Iran. And turning back to Gothenburg and to the Alpine House, where I spent a large part of my working time. We have these plants in the collections, and once you've seen them in the wild, once you've had that connection, you get a deeper, caring for the plants, and just by meeting them in nature, suddenly the plants perform better with you in the gardens. This particular form it's a plant we grow that we received during one of these meetings. It was the international conference in Nottingham, 1981, that my colleague Henrik Zetterlund brought back a cutting from Jack Crossland, who was one at the time was one of the best growers of Alpines in Scotland, and he won a lot of prizes for his Calcea uniflora, which flowered well for him. Many clones in cultivation doesn't seem to flower really well, but this particular clone flowers well with us. And this is a view looking over the one of the tables in the Alpine house, and here Clematis tenuiloba growing side by side with the Calcea, and these accessions of Clematis tenuiloba that we grow they were collected by Henrik Zetterlund again in the 80s during one of his trips to the west. There's another view. It's there is a plant spread in cultivation under the name Ylva cultivar, which comes from this collection, and Ylva is Henrik's daughter, for which the plant was named for. And I will soon go back to plants grown under glass. We're just gonna have a quick look through parts of the rock garden. We're now looking. We have a view looking out over the rock garden. The rock garden at Gothenburg, it was initially starting out as an alpinetum in the 1920s. Very different then compared to what it looks today. And during the 70s and especially 80s and 90s, larger construction work took place, and what you see mainly today was constructed during that period. And what we see here, well, I should say that in our rock garden we host close to 5,000 accessions. Large part of these are wild material, and it's divided geographically. And if you see the waterfall in the back, just below the waterfall, we have the European hill. And right in front of us, from the bottom of the picture towards the paved road, is the Scandinavian part. And on the other side of the paved road is the sunny Asian part, where we host plants. We keep plants basically from all over Asia, which prefer a sunny position in the garden. So it's divided in that way. And behind the flowering cherry, there is a large slope, and that's where we keep the North American part. Then straight left from the cherry is where the Himalayan part lies, so the Asian peat garden, which I will return to within shortly. Here's another view, just looking over the garden, an autumn view with some years where you get good autumn colors. And here's another view from a different angle, taken from on top of one of the ridges, which create this valley where the rock garden lies. This is a view we very rarely see. This picture was taken in I don't really see, 2016, I believe it must have been, and it's this has only happened one time that I have experienced. So this, for me, this looks like Colorado winter, you know, how I would imagine it. But we get a rainfall about 800 millimeters a year, and that's spread out very evenly throughout the year. And the low temperature record is -26 Celsius, which means that it has happened one time. We usually get 2 or 3 weeks in January, February with temperatures down to -15 perhaps. But some years we actually had the same temperature on Midsummer Eve as we had on New Year's Eve one year. So we can have very mild winters with no snow cover, with not much minus degrees at all, and some winters it can be quite cold. And I'm gonna just quickly, we're gonna look through the Asian peat walls, or the shady Asian part, basically because it's one of the parts of the garden that I've been responsible for looking after since I started to work at Gothenburg in 2009. And so that's the main reason, but it's also fascinating, and we grow a lot of very special plants in this area. And peat garden, basically more or less all beds are built up by walls of peat blocks, and most of these walls are planted. Here you can see Schizocordon, Soldanaloides, growing together with dwarf rhododendrons. And these images are from slightly earlier in the season. The shortgrass starts first of the Diapensiaceae members, but the Diapensiaceae members, they, shortgrass and Schizocordon, etc., they love to grow in peat blocks, and they do very well with us. Here's another form of shortgrass uniflora, and the variety Cantonensis, which has pure white flowers, very much smaller leaf than shortgrass uniflora in itself. And the Schizocordons and the shortgrass, they grow naturally in Japan, and they're from Japan, while Bernuxia tibetica to the right, which also does well with us, comes from southwest China, Tibet, and the East Himalayas. And over the years, I've been working quite a lot of reconstructing part of the garden, and this is basically just 2 slides showing how we build with peat blocks. And what we actually create is raised beds, which gives you good drainage, and which basically creates good environment for many of these Himalayan plants, which needs good humidity and good drainage. And the peat itself, when it's wet, provides the atmosphere with humidity. And these are just some plants that rare things that we've grown over the years. Most of these are very short-lived, and you have them for a short period of time and you take the picture, and that's wonderful. And the aim is, of course, to keep them in cultivation with us for forever. But many of these plants from the Himalayas and southwest China are very short-lived, and that's the way it is. But if you're lucky, you manage to get seeds, and a few of these we still have growing actually. In this area, in the Asian peat garden, there is a pond in the center, which creates a important element to the garden. Water is always a big importance, and around the water here, a lot of these perhaps sometimes trickier plant seems to be, have done well and been happy. I'm going to show you a couple of, plants of deeper interest to me. Anyway, this is Thermopsis barbata, and this is a plant that until, for a long time, people have been trying to grow it and to make it flowering cultivation, and we managed to do so a couple of years back, and it was the 10th attempt from the garden side to grow this very rare Thermopsis from the Himalayas. It comes from high altitude in the Himalayas, and it actually took 13 years to flower, and it flowered for 2 years and unfortunately died after that. But it's the way of gardening. And in the background you see the red Meconopsis punicea, and this is the perennial form that has been spread out from Scotland, from this keen growers, Ian Christie, and this particular plant we got from a very skilled grower in Scotland, Cyril Lafong, an excellent grower. Primula radi, one of these Himalayan plants that you'd love to see in a woodland setting, has a fantastic smell, and seems to do well, with us here. And talking about the bulb collection at Gothenburg, it's a lot of things that, we grow a lot of things under glass, but also there's so many bulbs that you can grow outside in the garden, and the Himalayan alliums are one of these, the group that I'm very fond of. And what you see here, the blue Allium sikimensis, and the white one to the left, Allium ovalifolium, and here we see in the form or the variety Levconeverum, which has this hosta type leaves with white nervation, which is very attractive, and these flowers which are crystalline white and growing in mingled together with this allium. You see in the picture to the left the Corydalis mucronipetala, which comes from southwest China, and was described by Magnus Lidén, a botanist connected to the garden. He will come up later in the talk. You will see a picture of him later on. Some Cypripedium species do well with us. Cypripedium Yatabianum and Guttatum. They spread by stolons, and they seem to like our climate and do well. It's fairly spread amongst gardeners in Sweden. And Corydalis species. This is Corydalis bracteata, closely related to Corydalis blanda, and it seeds around, doesn't spread anything, but it seeds around, and we have a good ongoing population in the woodlands. And this comes from Siberia. In the natural habitat, grows together with this Fritillaria. This is Fritillaria dagana from the Sayan Mountains in Siberia, and it's a member of it belongs to the same group as all the North American members of Fritillaria, which is quite interesting. There are a couple of species in East Asia, and Far East, which morphologically is connected to the North American species. But that was just a short, tour from the rock garden. And we're heading down, and now we look. This is a view from the bulb house. It's a quite large greenhouse. Well, everything is comparable, but it consists of 18 raised beds, 4 meters long and 1.5 meters wide. And this is basically where we grow the main part of the bulb collection. And there is another Alpine house, which I showed you some slides from earlier, where we keep parts of this bulb collection as well, and various Alpines from all over the world, from temperated regions. And just outside, while the 2 previous houses were closed to the public, this is a bulb garden which is open to the public. And this image illustrates quite well what this glass roof does. It gives us the opportunity to control the rainfall and the watering regime. So under glass, here we grow mainly bulbs from steppe areas, from bulbs that, or geophytes, bulbs or other perennials with which do well in this situation, are kept here, are grown here. And this is called the Per Wendelboom Memorial Bulb Garden. Here's a view from early spring. This is just about what it looks like right now here at Gothenburg. This is an old slide, but we are slowly coming. Spring is coming here now with us slowly. And here we have Per Wendelboom to the left. Per Wendelboom was a Norwegian botanist who became the director at Gothenburg in 1965, and he had a deep interest in the flora of Iran and Afghanistan, particularly, and had a deep interest in bulbs. So basically, he started that interest at the gardens with starting to build up the bulb collection. And he traveled quite a lot to Afghanistan, and in the 70s he took part in building up the botanical garden in Tehran in Iran. And he made many important discoveries. He described a lot of species new to science, and a couple of species has been named after him in his honor. To the right here, Fritillaria acmopetala, the subspecies Wendelboei. But not just bulbs, he also had a deep interest and took a deep interest in all type of plants. And this is prior to that he came to Gothenburg, that he wrote the first monograph on the genus Dionysia, and in which he described a number of new species. And that is a tradition that we have kept up at Gothenburg, and we have a large collection of Dionysia species. I won't be saying all the names here, but there's a lot of species, and it's a collection which has been very much researched and is ongoing. And at the moment, there is a new monograph on the way, and on this genus, and that's very exciting. The Dionysia esfandiari is one of my favorites, and these are tricky to grow. We need to propagate them annually with cuttings. It takes lots and lots of cuttings every year. suddenly they died the sudden Dionysia death. The Dionysia afghanica, rare Dionysia from Afghanistan, which it's impossible to get to in nature these days, and it's important that we managed to keep these in cultivation. And here we have Magnus Lidén. His authority on Corydalis has done a lot of. He has a broad knowledge when it comes to Himalayan plants and worked a lot recently on the East Himalayan flora. But he's also the authority on Dionysia and has described a number of species recently. A couple of years back, Dionysia Zetterlundi was described and named after Henrik Zetterlund. And 2 years back, in 2018, actually, the garden undertook an expedition to Iran, specifically for collecting and searching for Dionysia species. And this new species was found, and it's just about to be described. The manuscript is sent in, and it will be officially published within a couple of weeks, I would say. And it's going to be named Google Earthy. Mainly because it's Magnus Lidén used Google Earth to find north-facing possible cliffs for Dionysias, and on one of those sites they found a new species. So not published yet, but very soon it will be published. Google Earth. And this is another view looking over the Alpine house, which I've been looking after since I started the garden in 2009. The first years, of course, everything new to me, and I lost a lot of plants initially, but after gardening here for after 10 years, you realize that plants die on you, so you don't have to be too concerned about it. But it's propagation is so important, and sharing, so you can get material back eventually, and spreading material to other gardens. This is our propagation house, and what we are looking at here is mainly seedlings that has been potted on. So it's we sow quite a lot of seeds there annually, and as soon as they germinate at a very small stage, they're being potted on into small pots. Some of them are Alpines going to the Alpine house, majority of these going to the rock garden later on. And cuttings, lots of cuttings. Most of the cushion forming Alpines that we grow, we take cuttings from each year, not only to secure the actual collections, but also we have a tufa-stone house where lots of these cuttings are being planted into. I'm sorry, I will not be showing any pictures of that today, but the propagation in a way is of big importance. And I'm just going to show you our specific Alpine mix. This is a medium that we grow most of the Alpines in, which basically has no humus. This is the recipe, basically. So it's perlite and granular clay, vermiculite, and sand, and then it's 2 fractions of pumice. And these 2 fractions of pumice is also what we use as medium for taking cuttings. So either one of these 2. And what's interesting is actually that the larger fraction is what is working best for Dionysia cuttings, for example. It has a very good ability to hold water and hold air at the same time. And I know that some fabric cats, some brands of cat litter. Do you call it cat litter? Yeah, it's basically the same thing, and you can actually find good quality propagation whom is buying cat litter. And we propagate a lot of things from divisions and from seed, but some things you need to find ways to propagate through cuttings. And a couple of years back, we grow this fantastic Pulsatilla integrifolia. It used to be known under the name Miakia integrifolia. Comes from from Sakhalin in the very east, and I believe that we are down to just one clone that we've been dividing. But a couple of years back, we started to take cuttings from this, and cuttings taken in July, quite late in the season. We managed to get roots on, and so we're very happy about that. So we can keep the true thing in cultivation. This is spread among gardeners, especially in Sweden, but it seems to very easily hybridize with Pulsatilla vernalis and even probably other species of Pulsatilla. So you get some pink color tones to the flowers, and so to be able to propagate it through cuttings is important. And Pulsatilla Kostuchevi from Kyrgyzstan is a recent accession in our collection. It's very interesting. It goes by runners, and in that way propagates itself. But I'm not sure that it actually should be a Pulsatilla. It looks more like an anemone to me. It's a strange thing, a beautiful thing. It's a very interesting addition to our collection. And moving on, we grow large variety of plants, and up to the left, Campanula Troigeri from northeast Turkey, and Paracollegia anemonidis from the Himalayas or Central Asia, and the Oxalis laciniata to the right from Patagonia are just a few among the Alpines that I grow. A lot of the North American, especially the Rockies, Rocky Alpines, are very suitable for the Alpine house. The Lepidium osleri is quite interesting. It's we've had it for a long time, and it's a beautiful thing, very compact, and I really love it, and easily propagated from cuttings, so we can keep it in the collection easily. The Phacelia sericea, the ones I've grown so far has proven quite short-lived. I understand that it should be good perennial forms, but it's not the easiest plant to maintain for us over a long time. Androsaces, we grow, and the Petunia patagonica from Patagonia again, Callianthemums, and various Levisias. And right behind the Levisia, in the lower right picture, there's a big bun with yellow flowers just under the vent, which is our Shoshone pulvinata, which actually measures, it's almost a meter across. So it's a large plant, larger than many plants you see in the wild, I would guess. I've seen just one plant, but this is a large specimen, and that's mainly because it's been difficult to propagate. So need to grow it on the plants, the original plants. But Levisias, they're wonderful. And to the left, Levisia rediviva, and I'm very much excited about this Levisia rediviva because it's from one of the gatherings that one of the seed collections that I did when I was over in 2016, and I'm very happy about that growing well, and it's a beautiful form as well. And to the right from Yosemite Mountains, the beautiful Discepala, which is a wonderful little thing, and I would love to, one day be able to go to the west again to see this in its environment, true environment. Sometimes you find things in books and see things for the first time. This was the first time when I saw Adrianthus overinnianus. It's in this Russian book, and Adrianthus overinnianus has been the plants have been cultivated under that name in the past, but they've always been another species of Adrianthus, never the real thing. And then we saw this picture, and it looks like Dionysia. And then in 2013, we managed to get wild collected seeds, and then it's a couple of years later it flowered for us, and it's a beautiful thing. It's very compact in growth, and these beautiful campanula flowers. This comes from the east part of Caucasus, Dagestan, and very, very a long way, very distant from the rest of Adrianthus species, which are mainly coming from the Balkans. Another very recent accession in the Alpine house is this Megalerantis saniculifolia, which I've never heard of prior to that we received it. It was a lady living in Gothenburg, which comes from South Korea, which came to the garden a couple of years back and handed this to us and said that she wanted us to grow it. One of her favorite native plants, and she wanted to see this at the gardens. So we grow this plant, and it's a lovely little thing. It's monotypic, so it's a sole member in the genus. But I've seen some publications, and well, some botanists have been putting this into Trollius, and then when you look at it, it has some resemblance with Trollius laxus, perhaps. But it's a beautiful little thing, small, compact, with quite big white flowers, and it's flowering right now, actually, in the Alpine house. And here we have a Henrik Zetterlund. I'm sure that some of you know him at least by name, and he's been the horticultural curator at Gothenburg for. He's been working at the garden for more than 40 years, and he's standing here holding Primula renifolia, a plant that he collected together with other colleagues in Caucasus in 2011. The garden undertook an expedition, and this was high on the target list. It has been in cultivation before. Dieter Schummel once introduced the species into cultivation, but was then lost. So this was a reintroduction into cultivation. And couple of seeds, one seed germinated, and a tiny little cutting were taken at site as well, and we managed to get it growing. And Henrik is here, very happy with the plants and showing me how to repot it by putting a knife against the pot and knocking with the tools, knocking up the pot in 2 parts, and showing me how he would have done it, you know, repotting this primula. And this is a very beautiful primula and not the easiest one to grow. But anyway, we had 1 seedling and we had 1 plant from a cutting, but they both turned to be pin, and we didn't have, you know, much thought of getting good success in and cross-pollinating the plants, and since both were pin. But Henrik probably for a long time have been thinking about the possibility to cross this with Primula megacephalia. Henrik has always had a very horticultural focused mind. The horticultural part of the botanical garden has always been very important to him. And he saw this opportunity and he suggested to me that we should try to pollinate these 2. And we did, and it resulted in a very strong growing, beautiful hybrid, very floriferous, having hybrid vigor, one should probably say. And it was the first time ever that this cross have been made. Robert Rolfe, which is a well-known gardener and author of lots and lots of articles in the Alpine Garden Society specifically. He was at this time in our garden, Gothenburg, for photographing colchicum, our colchicum collection. And we talked about this plant, and he wanted to describe this because this cross was unique, never done before, and the possibility for this plant to become a really good garden plant was a big importance. So a couple of years back, this was described as Primula gothenburgensis, and it flowers for almost 2 months. Starting flowers for such a long time, big flowers, and it's a great plant. So we do play around a little bit at the gardens. In the Alpine house, so one side of the Alpine house we have step bulbs, and then in the center it's 2 Alpines, so to speak, a lot of cushion plants. But we also grow a lot of woodland plants and woodland bulbs, perhaps. And there are a group of Fritillaria species from Japan, the Japonica group, with a couple of different species, Fritillaria japonica, Kojdzumiana, Sikokiana, and a few others. But they're so delicate, very, very small. 10 centimeters tall at maximum, and there's something very elegant about them, and these are favorite of mine. I'm very fond of these. And Trillium rivali, this is an exceptionally good color form, Cyril Lafon. Corydalis syriensis, one of the many Corydalis species. And now the majority of our bulb collection is of course of step bulbs, and a quick look later in the summer over the bulb garden. A lot of Central Asian bulbs like Allium karataviense henriki from Uzbekistan, and Corydalis henriki within the Solida group from Turkey, which likes to grow in this steppe environment. So it gets completely dried up from from June until October, perhaps, when we do the first watering. And into the collection and looking at what we grow in pots, Corydalis afghanica is one of these very rare old accessions, one of Per Wendelboe's old original accessions from Afghanistan. It's probably the only bulb of this species in cultivation at the moment. And it's fascinating to think that, you know, that we've kept this in the same bulb growing for such a long time. Into the bulb house and autumn flowering colchicums we see here, the genus Colchicum. It's a large genus, about 100 species, of which 50 are autumn flowering and just as many spring flowering, more or less. And here we have Jimmy Persson and Karin Persson. Karin is the taxonomist. She worked at the institution here, Botanical Institution at Gothenburg, as a taxonomist, and spent the larger part of her career working on Colchicum. And her husband, Jimmy Persson, was a scientific curator at Gothenburg, and so together they spent a large part of their careers working on Colchicum. So for that reason, our collection of Colchicum is very large. And Karin named Colchicum Wendelboei among a lot of other Colchicum species as well. Spring flowering Colchicums. Picture to the right, a couple of different accessions of a natural hybrid between Colchicum luteum and Colchicum kesselringi, just coming up. In this picture, Colchicum tsovitzi to the left, it's an excellent rock garden plant for us here. It does really well outside in a well-drained, exposed rock garden situation. And so does even the other one, the small one, Colchicum figlali, which is a very interesting species from the Sandras Dag, is what the mountain is called in Turkey, southwest Turkey. And it has this red little neck to the flower, and it's minute, very little, small little thing. It's a close-up of that one. And spring flowering Colchicums are one of the earliest bulbs to flower in the garden. Some even start flowering in November, of the spring flowering ones, and flowering through the winter if there is a mild winter. They're followed by Iris Persica, Stenophylla, and Galatica. And what we see here is Persica and Stenophylla mainly. These are very small urises from Turkey. And we have a large collection because it's Henrik who's been looking after this collection has been extremely good gardener, skilled grower, and over the years this collection have grown. They're not looking as good as this at the moment. Actually, it's, you know, some years are better than others, but it's an important part of our collection, and it's interesting to see all the shades here as well in this slide. Some forms of Iris Persica can even be completely yellow, like this one here. And this is a very special form of Iris Stenophylla. These forms was initially described as Heldraichi, but according to Tony Hall, which is the iris guru, and this falls within Stenophylla. I'm sure he's right about that, but it's a very special form in a way, lovely thing. And Crocus pocus, there's so many new species of crocus being described at a very fast speed, and it's difficult to say almost impossible to keep up. We grow a large collection of crocuses, close to 1,000 accessions of crocus. I'm just going to show you very few ones. Crocus Gothenburgensis, a cross that was initially done here at the gardens. It's very unreal colors to it, and of course important to us. Crocus vallicula, an autumn flowering crocus from Caucasus, beautiful white flowering crocuses, which as it goes over, fades to pink, and in one pot of seedlings from wild collected seeds a long time ago, Henrik spotted one individual that faded earlier than the others, and he selected that one. And it's interesting because it starts to go pink for a long time before it actually fades. So and Henrik came up with the name, of course, Blushing Marmot. One of my favorites, Crocus Shariani, and this form, this variety, Flavus, which has a very special color to it. From the Caucasus, it's been thought to be a hybrid between Vallicula and another species, well, Shariani and Vallicula. But we received our material initially as seed from wild collected, and all the seeds were identical to this. So it could be stable hybrid populations, possibly. Beautiful thing anyway. And repotting the collection is one of the largest tasks we have of the year. So annually we go through and repot everything. We're actually going now, from this year on, we're going to repot a couple of things every second year to try to make some time. We start in August with the earliest things, or even July for some things actually, and then we finish by December most years. But it's very fascinating, and go through the pots and see what's these geophytes, the forms, and also to see how they're done, if they have increased or not. But I love the bulbous Berberidaceae members. The picture here shows a gymnospermium, but the tubers, Leontice. The gymnospermium and Leontice tubers looks very much the same, but it's the fascinating creations, and it's very fun to repot. The Fritillaria collection, repotting, it's very interesting. Purica looks have a special look to it. You recognize it once you see it. Kochiana always has stolons, so you get to learn the species by repotting as well. And this is our standard potting mixture, the mixture we use for small plants, perennials, and for the entire bulb collection. It's sand, mineral compost, grit, and peat, equal parts. And additional to that, it's bone meal and basalt meal that we add. Pollination, it's a lot of the bulbs being pollinated, trying to get seed for our seed exchange, the index seminum exchange with other botanical gardens, and also to get new genetics into our own collections. Majority of the buds are being sown in plastic pots, and they remain in the pots until they start flowering, most of them. And this is a strategy that works for us. It's a method that we worked out, which is good for us. And a couple of things I actually saw in clay pots, and that's mainly because I need to keep the humidity right. It's easier when you're growing things in clay pots sometimes, that you can water the sand plunge and the water penetrates the clay pots, and in that way you can get a more even moisture level. It makes it easier to control. Here, one of these Japanese fritillarias that I showed you pictures of before, which is very interesting, that they have round seeds instead of flat seeds like the rest of the fritillaria species have. These seeds looks more like seeds of erythronium. Another picture of Fritillaria koizumiana again. I showed you a picture of that before. Some of you might have seen this picture before if you attended the NARGS meeting in 2016. It's an older picture, but the Fritillaria collection, these are mainly North American species. We see here. But that's a part of the collection that I've been looking after for a very long time, and which I am very enthusiastic about. I love fritillarias. This is a very interesting and exciting fritillaria to flower for us. Well, for me, Fritillaria delavei. It comes from the Himalayas, southwest China, and grows in scree habitat on very high altitude. And it's very reluctant to flower. It's quite difficult to get this to flower actually. And this is an old accession. We've grown it at the garden since 1992. Well, old is relative, of course. So, but for me, this is a quite old accession collected during the Sino-British Liang expedition in '92. And it's a large flowering thing, and so connects my interest for Fritillaria and my interest for the Himalayas. And I was very excited about that flowering a couple of years back. Fritillaria polonini from West Iran, the Zagros Mountains, a small area just bordering Iraq. It's an area in Iran where many species occurs. It's one mountain which has been nicknamed the 8th Frit Mountain by Fritillaria enthusiasts, of course, but apparently it grows 8 Fritillaria species. Fritillaria polonini, an old accession that Prevendable collect. And one of my favorites, Fritillaria alberiana. It's a beautiful thing, strong pink flowers from northeast Turkey. And every year, we haven't this last year though, but every year otherwise we put on a bulb display. It started with a special event a couple of years back, and it was so popular, so we do it every year. So we bring forward what's best from inside the collections out to the public in one of our in the public greenhouse here at Collegeum Trifilum in the center. And we have this podium high table with clay pots plunged in sand, and this was a great success. Kids were able to climb up to have a look, and you actually got really, really close to the flowers. And even for us working with the collection, to be able to pick out these plants and observe them singly was much appreciated. So it's an exhibition we do annually, and sometimes we side by side with accessions from our collection, we've been showing various cultivars as well. So Chrysanthus romance, for instance, such a plant. Some things, this one is particularly beautiful, I think, but some things you like to show just for the name. So Sivrihisar daglarensis. It comes from a mountain in Turkey which is called Sivrihisar Dag. So Sivrihisar daglarensis is a good name, I think. And to minute muscaris. These small things, they disappear among the other bulbs in the greenhouse when they sit tight, pot by pot together. But here you can really appreciate these small miniature ones. Muscari discolor to the left, and Muscari macbethianum to the right, named after Ron Macbeth. From the Royal Botanical Garden, Edinburgh. And the garden is quite large. I realize I don't really have had any views or map showing you the entire size of the garden, but we have large areas with lawns, big lawns, which is very popular for the citizens of Gothenburg. It's especially this last year, as the first sun and warm temperatures come, people fill these lawns and have picnics, etc. But there are also a lot of areas that we realized would be perfect for naturalizing bulbs in the garden, and in between these trees and along with under shrubs, etc. So during this special event we had in 2016, we planted hundreds and thousands of bulbs. Got help from students, and this is a slope opposite side from the greenhouses, and these are mainly Crocus thomasinianus, various ones, and various irises, Iris Catherine Harkin, and Colchicum bulbocorium is what you're seeing here. No, but anyway, so in 2016 we covered a larger area with lots and lots of bulbs, chosen particularly for from our best thoughts that they would do well in a Swedish climate. Lots of various narcissus species and named cultivars, muscaris, lots of muscari latifolium. I think about 20,000 muscari latifolium went out here. And if you look here, the pink shades are Corydalis solida, which were at the site before the bulbs were planted, actually. And lots of Anemone nemorosa here as well. And it came out really well, and it was very, very beautiful, and it still is every year. But I must say, after a couple of years, it really looked at its best the first year after planting. Some things have, increased. The narcissus clumps up and don't flower so elegantly, or some clumps don't flower that well. But anyway, I'm gonna finish off. This is my last picture and my favorite picture of the year, from the Alpine house in full flower, lots of things, and one of my favorite Fritillaria species, Fritillaria gentneri from Oregon and California, flowering in the Alpine house. So thank you for listening and having me for this your meeting tonight. Thank you.
Thanks, Johan. That was spectacular. Your photos speak volumes of just the quality of displays and cultivation that go on there. So you can see why Panayoti and I consider Gothenburg the best botanic garden in the world. It's amazing and inspiring what you guys do. Are you okay if we open it up to some questions from the participants?
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Great. I think if it works for people, maybe if you'll put them in the chat and then I'll moderate, if you're happy with that. So we'll see if some questions pop in here. How often do you fertilize the bulbs besides the repotting? Do you do any liquid feed, or are they only fed when they're repotted?
Yeah, it's actually we use a method that we've been calling. Do you have the term promille?
I don't think so.
No, it's basically so where 1 milliliter per liter water.
Okay.
We use a liquid fertilizer
Okay.
that we dilute 1 milliliter per liter water. So it's a very weak solution of liquid fertilizer that we apply with every watering on everything. And it seems like that the plants take up what they need. And even, you know, during winter time, if things needs to be watered, we water with that solution. But specifically for the bulb collection, using that solution with every watering, twice a year mainly, when they're full growth, we strengthen that to about 1 centiliter per liter water, so 10 times more. And that's with the regular NPK, quite kalium-rich and nitrogen-rich solution. And as the buds go over later in the season, still springtime, of course, but as they start to finish flowering, we occasionally have a stronger solution again with a kalium-rich, potassium-rich fertilizer. So a weak solution of liquid fertilizer at every watering, and occasionally stronger solutions.
Great, thank you for that. So a couple questions have popped up. Carl was asking the origin of that allium ovadifolium with the beautiful hosta-like leaves.
Oh, yeah. It comes from southwest China, allium ovadifolium. And I'm not sure actually where we got our plant from initially, but it's a wonderful thing, and does well with us in our climate.
Does it set
it's worth seeking out. Sorry?
Does it set viable seed for you guys?
Yes, it does.
Nice, okay.
And it's if I don't collect the seeds, seedlings, it seeds around with us.
Okay.
It's been difficult, more and more difficult for us as an institution. I guess it's the same with every botanical garden, but to spread material to gardeners. But however, that is a quite old accession, and I'm sure I can be able to share material seed of that if someone in particular should be interested. That's doable. Yeah.
Great, thanks, Johan. And then Paniori is asking how many staff are in the rock garden and Alpine house.
We are throughout the whole garden. We are about 50 people, employees. That's including the administration and the shop, etc. For the Alpine Department, so we are a team we're 5 full-time employees, and during summer time we are up to 12, 13, 14 perhaps. And in between us, we share looking after the bulb collection and Alpines down under glass and the rock garden together. So rock garden, and of course a couple of us don't really have time for the rock garden all the time, but it's 12 people looking after all of that.
And then Rod's asking how many volunteers you have.
We don't have any volunteers. It's the union has been quite strong on that point, and it's a matter of taking in this, the view is that volunteers coming in would take working hours away from ordinary staff, which only works 6 months a year. So it's a situation where I don't know why it's a little bit too bad actually, but we don't have any volunteers.
Okay, are there any other questions? And Mike Bone says he's definitely interested in that allium seed.
Okay, yeah, I'll think of him. Yeah.
Thank you. Well, thank you everyone. And thanks again, Johan, for taking time on a Saturday night to share with us. That was a tremendous treat. And I saw many, many beautiful plants that I don't see photos of very often. So thank you again.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
And then someone asked about the mineral compost here just now.
Yeah.
So can you expand a little bit on the mineral compost that you guys use? What exactly that's made of?
Yeah. I can share those slides with you later on if you want to get them out into the group.
Sure, that'd be good.
It basically it's perlite and vermiculite, clay, granular clay, and sharp sand, and 2 different fractions of pumice, which is this volcanic rock, which is and all of these ingredients is actually on their own are good in keeping moisture and help. So basically we're building up a medium which is well drained but can hold moisture at the same time. It drains very well, so you can actually water quite freely. That's very good for us. And additional bone meal and pot ash we put into that mix as well, and then with the liquid feeding regime that works very well for us. Yeah.
Great, thanks. And then Glenn's asking the best time to visit.
Well, it depends on what you're for the garden, for the outside, the rock garden, and April, beginning of May. It's definitely the best time to visit the garden and rock garden. Beginning of April, perhaps, for the bulb collection. If you want to see the early bulbs, you need to come now. So it stretches over a long time, but I believe most people usually say that beginning of May is the best time to visit.
Yeah, I've been there late April, May, August, early October, and I've loved every moment of it. I think minus maybe winter, there isn't really a truly down season with your collection. I'm odd every single time. Then we have one more question. Hugh was asking if climate change is a factor there.
Yes, it is. We've noticed, climate change affecting perhaps for the things growing on the glass. Somehow the sun has become more intense, and we need to shade the houses slightly earlier than before. Saxifraga cushions, etc., burn easily, but over a longer period, perhaps what we noticed is that material growing outside in the garden that used to be hard to get the flower because the frost took them, or slightly more tender things, suddenly seems just fine in our climate. So we can grow more things.
Cactus.
Sorry,
Cactus.
cactus.
Yeah.
Yeah, we in the rock garden and the American part in the past we have grown some cacti, not too many. We have a succulent house in the greenhouses where we grow a couple of things. I have a few, we actually grow some Austrocylindropuntia, I think it's in the Dionysia house right now,
Okay.
together with the Dionysia. So, but we don't have a large collection of cacti at the moment, unfortunately. For the future.
Great. Any other questions?
Fantastic talk. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Great. Well, thank you, Johan. We'll let you get on with your Saturday evening. So thank you again.
Yeah.
And, thanks for going into work specifically for this.
No, I'm very happy about this. You know, I also miss out talking plants with other. So.
Well, as always, it's a treat. So thank you.
My pleasure. I really enjoyed it.
Bye-bye. Take care, everyone.
Bye-bye, everybody.